Hey everyone, Tim here. Welcome back to part 2 of my environment concept art demo. So here's the sketch that we did last time, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into Maya and just start roughing that out. I have it up on my PureRef that I use, PureRef. Just Google that. It's a really good program. You'll love it. Maybe I'll do a small demo on how to use it and how I use it and everything in the future. Anyways, now we've got Maya open. And I'm just going to start by creating a quick ground plane to base everything on. I'm just going to grab that, scale it up, and you'll see I have my scene right here, just a micro version of my scene, so I can have a general idea of where everything is. Once I've got this scaled up, I'm going to go over here and go to my subdivisions and just put these up really high. And now that I've got that, I'm gonna center my canvas up on my secondary screen. I have a separate camera for that so I can view that easily. And now I am going to place my sarcophagus that I created in the last drawing. And the purpose of this is just going to be more a perspective help for everyone. So let's make this really simple. For the purpose of simplicity, I'm going to make these out of really basic cubes. Just overlay them like that. We're going to create a new one, pull it forward, and you'll see the locking mechanism that I mentioned last time. Spinning it, slide it onto there. And then I had another piece on top here. This one was scaled out a bit bigger, a little bit thicker. And I also had another piece. Hitting Control D to duplicate that, slide that down on the front here. Maybe I'll put some basic corner pieces on here as well. And then another center piece up a little higher. And then delete that. And then on the top of this, send this back to its normal position. I duplicate it again. I'm actually going to repeat this shape on top as well. And then I'll look over at our other view. And it's starting to look pretty good. Now I just need to place it in the scene where it's similar to my drawing. And here's where you can kind of, you can sort of change things a little bit from your original composition. You can maybe if you're drawing, you didn't have the best perspective, maybe you can think about a more dynamic scene than you originally had done. And that's kind of a really big help with these things. You don't have to worry about the drawing aspect as much. Once you have your idea out there, you can just focus on composition, you can focus on world building and things like that. That's some of the reasons I like using 3D in a lot of my work. It gets the whole, I still don't spend all the time with perspective basically. And I still know perspective, and it's good to know perspective, but it can be a nuisance sometimes. And really what I'm doing here is I'm just grabbing large sections of faces, and I'm using the soft selection, which is you hit B. You can see I can hold B and scale those soft selections up and down. And I'm just grabbing large segments of stuff, dirt, I guess, and scaling them up and down. I'm going to grab this segment back here. If you hold Shift, you can add to the selection. Well, Control and Shift will add. Control will subtract. And whoops, undid that. I'll pull that piece up. Let's make my selection smaller. And I'm really just working with really broad strokes at the moment. There are some finer ways to adjust things like this. I just want to have like some interesting terrain. There's lots of ways you can come up with terrain too. You could pull in an alpha, or not an alpha, but just a black and white image, height map is what I think it would be called. And you could use that as a device, create your terrain. So you're gonna move this whole block of terrain over a bit. And obviously the stuff I'm doing right now is not like game ready or anything. This is just for my reference for my drawings. Really wouldn't work for much more than that. I'm gonna bring this, and I don't want it quite at the selection in front here. I want to remove that a bit. I'll make it a little bit softer or a little smaller. And scale that up a bit. Grab the segment right behind. Scale that down, maybe grab some way back here. And I keep, oh, I turn my soft selection off. I keep referencing, I'm actually looking at my secondary screen with the small image of the, well, it's not my secondary screen, but the small image of my composition. And I keep focusing on that. And I'm not really even looking at this area of the screen other than to make my broad selections. So we got a pretty good selection here. Let's actually save this really quick. Always remember to save your stuff. Call it Graveyard. I'm just gonna throw on a desktop for now. Maybe we'll call it Summoning. Okay, so now that's saved. Go in here. I'm actually gonna turn off my grid. I don't really need that anymore. We've got a basic terrain set up here. You look up here, the composition looks pretty nice. Maybe we'll turn on, where is it? You can see the lines that might help. You could turn that on and off. Depends on your preference. Go in, and I'm gonna create a few gravestones. Remember I had sort of those, that diamond shaped gravestone was sort of everywhere. Let's use that again. And that, duplicate that with Control D. Put it in. I'm gonna try to keep the modeling to a minimum. And we're gonna go back into Photoshop and do a lot more work with that. Just for reference lines, we'll make this interior. Oh, whoops, let's grab this one, make that a little bit wider. There we go. And make that single object. And then center point, and we're gonna move the center point down to the base. And I'll show you why I do that. So then if you hold V, you can actually snap it along your vertex points, and it will snap along your terrain nicely. That's a good way to move it around. Let's make a really quick book too. Zoom in on that with hitting F. So this is going to be pages of the book. And now I'm going to create the exterior of the book. And we're going to do a nice thick one. Hefty book. I'm actually going to duplicate these two pieces like that. And I'm going to combine these and create them into one single object. Center the pivot point. So we don't have that same tool showing up there. And I'm going to extrude out just a bit. Now that I have that, I'm going to go over into my toolkit and hit bridge. And take the segments down to 1 divisions. And there, that closed that off. And I'm going to remove that edge. We don't really need to do this if it's for reference. It bugged me. I could clean that up a bit more if I wanted to, but that's fine for now. Scale that in. The book is looking pretty good. I do want to add a little bit of like kind of the indentations that the pages might have. We're going to grab this object, hit the cut tool, and just add a few of these lines. I grab verts, pull them in a bit, just give it a little bit of character. You can do most of this in your drawing anyways. Okay, we got that book. We're going to duplicate that, move it over, and now I'm just going to do the open version of the book. I'm going to grab these here, hit E, spin it till it's open. Not going to look very good. Probably going to look quite bad, in fact. We'll fix that in a second. Got some faces crossing over and stuff. I'm gonna pull these up. Pull these up too. And kind of just get that look of the book pages being opened. That's probably enough. I mean, you could go a little further if you wanted and kind of maybe duplicate this over, spin it around so it's the pages. If you wanted, you could add a bend to the page, do the soft selection, scale it down, turn it. Depends how far you want to go with it. That's plenty for now. I'm gonna make that a single piece, center the pivot point. And now I'm gonna create those stacks of books I had in the concept. I'm gonna actually make it a single object, combine them, center the pivot point, lower it down a little bit. And I might need to adjust my scale a little bit. Let's move this gravestone out of the way. If you look, a little too big, but we can adjust that later. I'm just gonna slide those books over, and now we're gonna go ahead and place these gravestones. I'm gonna bring this one kind of to the foreground, kind of just guesstimate where it is, and then lower it down into the scene. And sometimes I play around with perspective and just make things larger or smaller than they actually are. In this case, it's not true perspective, but it's just for drawing reference, so no big deal. I mean, it's not true size is what I mean to say. True perspective, but I'm just keeping the camera close and alluding to distance by scale. Move this one out of the way. And put some right back here. I'm gonna lump them, and then I'll go back in and add like an aging of tilting them and things like that. Like it looked good in this scene, but if you look over in the top right, it didn't look so good. So a lot of times I place things based on that. Let's actually grab this group of 3. We're gonna duplicate that. I'm gonna move them over here and just move them out. I'm gonna take this one. I'm debating now if I want to keep everything, like all the gravestones sort of facing the same way, or if I want to have them moved around a bit. I'm actually gonna adjust the pivot point just slightly on the, whoops. Hold D, just slide it up a bit. So now it just kind of sits in the ground a little further. And it looks like I had these sort of tilted a little bit away from the area. I'm gonna duplicate out a few back, maybe make this one bigger. Tilt it. I'm holding V once again just to slide them around on the ground. I want it to look like it's a little further away than it actually is. And I don't want that to, that's a terrible, you can see there's a, you turn on lines, you can see there's quite a bad tangent over there. Very subtle though. Put that right here. I gotta remember that's gonna be my walking area, so I probably don't want to put it too close. Maybe this one will be a third one right up front. Smaller. And this one can go right there. Make this a little bit bigger. Push it back a bit. Let's save again, and then I'm gonna create some pillars real quick. Create a cube. Go over. And with my pillars, I didn't really create much to begin with. And I'm just gonna extrude out a few times to create this pillar. Go up a bit. Go down, back down again. Go up. Maybe we'll just gonna guess where those rotations might be here. And pull out the blue one. Come back to here. Raise it up again, and then extrude. Up a little further, extrude. Maybe I'll do an indentation in this one. Extrude inwards. Could do like some sort of inside of like a skull or something. I'm gonna make a little capstone for the top. Actually, before they do that, I'm gonna make a duplicate of this. It'll be a simplified one. One will have the capstone for the side pillars. Scoot that up. Get a little hair. And then come into a point. Harden all these edges. That selection. Try and extrude in or out. I'm gonna do an inward extrusion. Nice. And grab these lines and slide them down a bit more to kind of mirror that look of that one. I'm gonna go over to my more simplified pillar, and we're just gonna spin this around. And we'll keep the rotation. Might look nice if they're on each side though. I'm gonna hit extrude, and over here we're gonna say keep faces not together. And about there, that's good. Extrude again, slide it in. You notice I'm using the blue handle. Okay, there we go. I'm going to add that to this one as well. If I kept the faces, I'll show you what happens if you keep faces, if you were curious. So you hit extrude and keep faces together, and I pull this out, and it just messes up. It's not going to work. They're all one piece. So if I say faces not together, now when I scale, the separate polygon in the center. The G, and those we can keep together. There we go. I want to selection, make sure I have the right vert selected. Oh. I liked it better when it was lower. I do want an extra detail in here, so I'm going to hit the cut tool and throw that in. Go to faces, and then make a slight cut into here. There. Okay, so now we have our pillars. We could just do the gate. We'll do that in probably in 2D would be fine. Now I'm noticing my plane didn't actually build it far enough, but that's okay. Notice I'm out in the middle of space here. Slide that over. And I'm referencing my drawing. We'll go back to that. There's my drawing. I want to make kind of this gate floating back there. Here. I was pushing it way back. I'm grabbing these little flat pieces to slide it back further and further. I want it to face the camera a little bit. Make it bigger. Raise it up. And make it a little bit thicker. I'll just make it bigger. I'm going to duplicate it. That'd be about the gate distance. Slide these together. Have them go up a bit more. Push them back. Make them a little bit larger. And I keep just tweaking them until I like their placement and composition. I'm trying to put them in kind of this. It's actually pretty good. Sort of this 1/3 over on that side. If I want them a little bit high and kind of have a looming look to them. I'm actually going to combine them. Now I can kind of move them and twist them a little bit. There we go. And you see they're actually like, they're just really oddly placed right now, but that's okay. Now I just want to create some pillars for like the rest of the fence area. And they can just be kind of peeking through way back there. Slide them up a bit and just have them a little bit between. Maybe you see them just poking and the areas just a tiny bit. One right here. Lower it down so it's actually behind the ground. And turn it. I don't know if I'm really even that happy with these pillar placements, but it's all right. Just trying to avoid some tangents that are gonna sure show up being behind all those gravestones. Let's continue and place some more of these gravestones. I want to fill out area right here. Back to my gravestone. I'm just hitting F to refocus. Scale this up so it looks like it fits the scene a bit better. Turn them to face the camera. We'll have all these objects sort of facing towards this whole scene over here. I have this one. So one thing you want to avoid is cropping it right down the middle. So I'm gonna have either that much exposed or that much. I'm gonna go with kind of this 3/4 showing. You'll notice I made a little bit of almost like a tangent here, and I slide that piece in front. And tangents are only really, like, you can use tangents to your advantage if you want to really focus an area, but you have to be really good at it, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. I mean, I'm sure I have a lot of accidental tangents. Okay. And let's do one more gravestone super in front. Maybe I'll actually put one, I kind of like one right there too. Looks kind of nice. Turn it a little bit. And now we'll have one facing the camera that way, so we're closing off this area. Oops. Pull it towards the camera more. And this doesn't, placement of this doesn't matter too much as long as I have it in proper location in my camera. I don't know if I even really like that. I'm gonna delete that one for now and just leave this one. And let's get back to, let's get back to book placement. I wanted a big stack of books on the side here. Great, I've got the first book. And to create my stack of books, I'm just gonna make a new one, and we're just gonna scale them all over the place. And as I stack them up, I'll scale them, place them, twist them a little bit so we get lots of nice variety. Maybe this book's really, really big that way. Slide these out just a bit more. Maybe this book. Oops. Grabbing the wrong one. I want to snap it right there. This one's really tall. Maybe there's another. Yeah, that'd be a little weird. Probably high enough for that stack. Let's start another stack behind it. Actually, I didn't change the thickness of the books too much. Let's make this one really thick, make this one thinner, slide this one down, and do one more on top of that, and just have like the spine of the book is going to be facing along there. Change the shape up a bit. Maybe it's kind of teetering over a little bit even. Just a tiny bit, and we're just going to go through here, and just so it doesn't look too perfect, we're just going to adjust all the angles a little bit. They have various thicknesses as they stack up. I'm noticing there's a tangent with this one right here. So I'm gonna go to that. And just slide it over a bit and try to get a good placement for that. And save my scene again. Just Control S as we go along. This one I noticed I want to move it just a little bit. Okay, say we want to have a skull in here. You could find like a skull, import that and put it into your scene if you want, or you could just make a quick skull here. I'm gonna make it out of a sphere and a cylinder. And we're gonna center them. I use my center tool. Go. And then pull cylinder forward, and we've got a skull. Center the point, combine the objects, and put it scale. Books really could be any size. I think I put over here in the actual scene. I want to have a center stone where this person is casting this curse or whatever it is. Imagine they're trying to summon something wicked this way. Place that there. I might actually increase the amount of sides. I don't know if it's too late for that, but right. Whoops. I keep trying to hit object and my mouse keeps up. And let's go into polycylinder and put that up to about 30. Little smoother edges. And I'm gonna select just the top faces. I'm gonna do a few extrusions just because cylinders are always a pain to draw, and if I do this, I have a nice guideline for me on these cylinders. I could turn this into, it could be stones pattern. I could skew a pattern on there, Photoshop, or it could be just like a cobblestone pattern or something like that. Do anything. And I'm actually bevel this edge. Okay. And I'm going to turn it a little bit, have it a little bit ground, so it's sort of growing into the ground, or not growing in the ground, the dirt's kind of covering up a bit. We can go back into our ground mesh here, grab some pieces and slide them down. Like a little more natural. I'm going to change this line up in here a little bit just so it doesn't look as samey. Go back into my path. Actually, I'm going to use this tool. We're going to deselect that. This brush tool, scale it down a bit. Hopefully my tablet works. There we go. And I'm holding control to push things down. I'm going to turn down opacity just a bit so it's not quite as strong. A little bit smaller and kind of just have some veins going through the ground. Actually, I'm going to go this area. I'll make this area more dense. I'm going to grab the faces that are really close here. Kind of all the general closer faces. And I'm going to go up to mesh and smooth. And that divided it, doubled. We could go for these really close up details if we wanted. We could go another step further if you wanted. And just hit G again. Now what that does is when I go into my sculpt tool, I can do a lot more detailed work in here if I want. Turn down the max this a bit. Make a smaller brush. And just sort of Have some ground come up across it, over to our books. Or just add some more interesting elements to the grass or ground. It will probably be grass too. Actually reminds me I should do some walkway stones. Let's do that next. Back to object mode, deselect that, and let's make some objects for walking stones. Let's make them really simple. They could be square, or we could do the have a few shapes like this. Grab the edge, bevel it. Oops, I didn't grab the whole edge. Bevel. Edges. Bevel. Oops. Division and then bevel. There we go. What? Why is it doing? Oh, I'm still in divisions. There we go. I keep hitting. Sorry about that. I keep hitting the wrong button. Once more. There we go. Now that we have those, we can make a little bit of a floor pattern. I'll scale this up once we're done. And maybe I'll have a twist. Grab the verts. And duplicate this. Oops. Let's merge in one piece. Duplicate it. And so there we have kind of a repeating segment. Keep a few loose ones off on the side. Grab this. Scale it down just slightly. And just put a few, let's find a placement for it. I'm gonna kind of make the path just go through here. A little bit showing there. And we can use dirt and such to cover up the roughness of this. Maybe I'll keep them all at the same height. Hide this for just a second with Control H. There we go. Okay, Control Shift H, and we'll bring that back really quick. And go back with my brush and just expose some of this, bring this up a bit. Hardly any of it's actually even showing here. But that's all right. That's enough to give the idea. Maybe I'll put a few tiles off on the side that are sort of broken off. Right here. Another one right here. And then another one right there. Tossing a few here and there just to... That one looks like it's actually not the best position. There we go. Okay, we almost have this done. I was gonna Put some candles in, wasn't I? Okay, so for candles, let's just grab a cylinder, bring it out, scale it down, scale it up, and just go bananas with these things. Maybe a little bit big. I'm just gonna place them everywhere. And we can adjust their height and stuff in a second. Maybe make some of them thinner for variety. Put some on top of the sarcophagus area. Some on the other side. Big one right here. I'm looking at my view again. Make sure that looks good. Shorter, a little bit taller. Like a bunch of little candle friends, all different heights. Okay. Here, put them over by this book so the book can catch on fire. I'm gonna burn this place down. My mom always said to make sure you put candles out. This person summoning this spirit, dark spirit or whatever, they didn't listen. I'm gonna burn this whole place down. Not a good idea. Let's put the skull in. I'm not quite sure in the scaling of the skull. I might make it a little smaller. Delete that one. Can't even see it really. Remember my giant book? I make that a little bit smaller. Maybe I'll have it like propped open. I think that's actually what I had in the original drawing. And we'll prop it up with nothing other than skulls. There you go. Maybe another skull. I'm gonna cheat a little bit and make another pile of books. Hit Control D. I duplicated the other pile of books. I'm gonna slide that down. Since they're gonna be back here, most people shouldn't notice that it's the same book pile. And let's throw another book pile back here. Spin it a bit. Could always add to it a little too if you wanted. Or even like scale it, make them a little taller or something. Have them teetering in a different direction. I'll put another one on top. Make it a little bit bigger. Have it sort of fallen off. I give the idea that it took a lot of research. I'm gonna bring all the research out to the field. The summoning field. I'm actually gonna add another. This is basically just a perspective reference line. So when you're in your drawing, you can just erase it, keep it there, whatever you want to do. So I remember I did draw a little bit of a pattern that kind of had that look. this down wider. There we go. That'd probably work better as an indentation, but oh yeah, and then we had the center key area. And let's have that about that big, and then with this surface we'll grab that, extrude it in, and out a bit, and try to make this centerpiece. And then extrude and set that. And there we go. Now we have our summoning stone. Oh, looks like we had a little too much fun with the ground over here. Kind of covering up my composition a bit. Put candles all around this. Little groupings of small, medium, and large. I'm looking at trying to reference, look up here, trying to reference like the, so they're not in front of the book that I made. And right there, and the center one looks odd. Put it right. I don't know. That one's a little bit tough. Right here. Bring it out. Sure. Little baby candles around. Okay. I think that's probably a good enough rough. Now what we could do, so if you want to a larger screenshot or something, actually pull over one of my other views here. I have another duplicate view of a larger version of this. You can see the composition is looking pretty good, pretty happy with it. At this point, we could light it, or we could bring it in sketching and just draw over it. For now, I'm going to end that. It's a pretty long bit for that series for the modeling phase. And join me for part 3, where I take you to the next step. Thanks. Subscribe, comment, and yeah, thanks for stopping by.